Welcome back to part 2 of this video. If you did not see part 1, I'd encourage you to take a look at that. Today continues the progress from part 1 where we began producing a motor mount, and we'll see how far we can get with this project today on Austin's American Flyer. Well, here's an update on Brooks Hudson. I've made 3 different motor mounts, and I still have had issues with it binding up. So I talked with Brooks, and he told me that when he manufactured this arrangement, he actually hand drilled out the middle of this worm gear to fit the motor shaft into it. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But he also said, I think, it probably has a bit of a wobble to it. But because I was already started with motor mount and wanted to see what I could come up with, I went ahead and did first, second, and third revision. And then I would need to make another revision if I were going to go forward with this. But it's been a fun experiment, but now it's time to move on. So the next thing is to grab a donor engine that I have. And I'm going to go ahead and take all the components off of here, reverse unit, motor, and go ahead and swap those over to this chassis. Some of you are probably thinking, well, why don't you just keep this one and use it? Well, I've got several wheels that are in bad shape, and so I'm going to go ahead and try it this way and see what happens with the whole drive train situation. I'm still not sure how worn out this is. Let's see how bad this one. Yeah, see, this one doesn't really twist at all. This one, I've got some movement front to back, left to right, whatever, which means the chassis holes are worn. I would be surprised if this has inserts in it. I was going to look to see if it had brass buttons on the bottom, because then I would think, yeah, for sure it's going to have inserts on the inside. But anyhow, that's kind of the latest and greatest, and once I get things switched over, I will be back. Just one other bit of information. When Brooks did this was actually before kits were available, which now you can buy a kit from Portline. I'm sure there's others that have a CAN motor, adapter, dolly reverse unit, all that stuff, and pretty much swap things out. But this is previous to all that, and so Brooks actually wrote some articles and has published those articles on his journey to reworking this, and it ran very well for many years. So I'm not sure what happened. He says it's been on a shelf for quite a long time now, and so not sure, but we're going to go ahead and set this motor aside and go back to good old-fashioned Flyer open frame field oriented motors, and like I said, I'll bring it back. I decided to speed this up about 10 times just because it's pretty tedious, but there are some of those that of you that like to see kind of how things get done, so apologize if this is too fast. Basically what I'm doing is removing everything from the old chassis and soldering the lead wires, checking the armature and the field here to make sure they're still good, and they did check out. And next, like I said, is just going to be removing the wires and getting everything swapped over. Bit of a spoiler alert. Had I known later what I didn't know at this point, I would have removed the busted up wheels from the donor chassis and brought the wheels over from Brooks 322, and would have been time ahead. And we'll get into that a little bit more here shortly. With reverse unit fingers, you can replace them. In this particular case, since I know I was going to be keeping this engine, and the holes that I found were pretty small, I just went ahead and used solder. That is a way you can keep fingers going, and there's something nice about using original fingers. And then those were the ones on the bottom. The ones on top, I went ahead and added silver solder to them, but they didn't have holes in them. But just to help them last a little bit longer, I did that. And after getting that done, I of course went in and started to clean up the barrel and clean up where I could the plate under the solenoid, and just try to get things moving as freely as possible and as cleaned up as well as possible, so there'd be good electrical contact. And again, another spoiler alert, this reverse unit gives me fits, and so eventually I end up taking the fingers back up and bending those a little bit better. That's the one downside with using original fingers, is the metal can be kind of fragile, and so you have to bend things when you put the fingers down, but then in the course of messing with stuff, you can kind of bend them away from the barrel, and that's a little bit about what happened here for me. Yeah, but interesting stuff nonetheless. So we get everything back together. Of course, I can't find some of my screws, which probably never happens to anyone but me. And of course, half the time they're on the floor. But get the screws figured out, get the reverse unit put in. And these reverse and boiler units are always, to me, a little weird how they attach them. There's two screws at the rear. The front just kind of hangs out there. I've never understood why they didn't attach them differently, and so that they were a stronger connection to the chassis. Anyhow, that's just me. So do a little lubrication with some lithium grease here on the worm gear, and then go ahead and get the brush holder attached. Now, this is an early motor, so we've got the single spring a brush holder versus the coil spring, and these can be a little bit of a dance when you're trying to get things together, because you have to get the springs to line up in the right place. And the ones I worked on, for some reason, always want to get off to one side, and so then they get pinched when you screw the brush holder on, and then you can't get them loose to install the brushes, which is what I'm getting ready to do here. Go to my little cache of parts and grab some new brushes. These kinds of brushes have a little slit at the back, and that's for that single spring to go in, and then of course push them onto the commutator surface. And again, just by way of review, this type of brush holder is something that was a carryover from pre-war, and the coil spring would be a newer variant of that then, that started around 48, I believe. Okay, with everything assembled, it's now time to see what we can do and see if we can get this motor to turn. And hopefully, if I did things the way I was supposed to, this thing will burst into life, and then it'll just be a quick couple more screws and everything will be back together. Oh, but maybe not. Oh, okay, headlights good, but all of us, out of the gate, we've got issues with the reverse unit, and so you'll see me messing with that, trying to get the motor to turn. And the other thing is, when you first rebuild a motor, sometimes they just need to be spun a little bit, because you've got brushes that aren't truly seated on the commutator surface, and sometimes they need a little bit of movement to get things to attach correctly. But then we get the motor to spin. But if you can hear, it doesn't sound very good. It sounds actually pretty terrible. And so for the next little bit, I just mess with that, trying to figure out, okay, can I get better RPMs out of the motor, because it's being very sluggish. It's not running very free. Or is this some of the things I kind of wondered about with the axle being an issue? We were having problems with some binding with the cam motor, and starting to wonder if there's maybe something going on with the gear on the drive axle, since we've got a different armature and a different worm gear, and yet we've still got the same problems. And of course, we still have reverse unit problems. So I don't know why I didn't take care of that right away. It's pretty irritating to watch this. I wish I would have. But nonetheless, I get to use a screwdriver to try to get the fingers where they need to be to get the motor to turn, so I can try and get a better handle on what's going on with the motor. And also messing with throttle to see what I can do to get different performance out of the motor. Again, these are just kind of diagnostic things that I do with a rebuild like this, trying to figure out, okay, what needs to be done and how's the motor working. So, alright, we've definitely got an issue, and I am trying to decide, at this point, what am I going to do with this thing? Again, this is not something I've run into before with a American Flyer motor and sounding this way, and so I decided I got to pull the wheels off. I've got to take a look at the axle. I've got to take a look at the gear and just kind of go from there. So using a wheel puller, I'm going to go ahead and get these wheels off, and then once I get the wheels off, then I'm going to use a block and a couple taps from a hammer to slide the axle out from between the frame, and then also pull the rear drive gear out so I can inspect those. So I start to inspect the main drive gear here and see some things that look a little bit weird with some of the teeth, but nothing super obvious. And then I was like, well, maybe there's a warp in the axle. So I roll it here, and again, not seeing anything that kind of jumps out at me. But obviously between the two, we've got a problem. It wasn't necessarily the worm drive on the can motor, or possibly it was a combination of all three. Maybe there was enough wonky play over the years that it just kind of wore things, and there was kind of no coming back from that. So I grabbed the donor shell once again. Remember what I said earlier about, had I only known, it would have been much simpler just to keep the donor engine motor intact, swap the drive wheels over, but I guess sometimes I got to do things the hard way. So here I am manhandling these wheels. I don't know why I didn't use a wheel puller, but I didn't. So I'm wedging stuff behind and trying to pop these wheels loose, and then I'm going to go ahead and do what I can to get the axle and the drive gear out of this donor engine and see if maybe we'll have a little smoother operation with Brooks's 322 after that. So I decided to go ahead and speed this up because it's pretty tedious, and I got to use the wheel puller after all because I can't get this one wheel off the axle. After I get this all done, next it's time to use a hammer and gently tap the axle out of the chassis. Obviously you want to make sure to not hit with too much force. Just gentle tapping will do it because you're sliding the axle out of the gear. And you also want to make sure to go the direction that the axle goes through, because there's a larger side and a smaller side. So you want to push it out the larger side. And then after that, once again, compare the teeth on the two drive gears, and now it's time to reinsert. And it's just reversing what I did to remove. Here I use a screwdriver to try to get that gear centered, because if you just keep tapping on it, you're eventually going to push it too far. I've been fortunate enough to get a quartering gauge for the 3-driver wheel American Flyer, but I've actually managed to get this to work for all the different steam engines. And so now that I've got the new axle and drive gear on, I've got to quarter these wheels. And so what I do first is I use a small screw to literally screw them to each side of the quartering device, and then I need to line up the existing drive wheels on each side, and then it's just a matter of squeezing it together. However, it's never quite that simple. For example, why did I put the wheel in the wrong spot? I don't know. So I got to put that in the right spot. Okay, now it's time. So let's go ahead and put this together, and having problems because the alignment of the pins for each side is really, really calibrated, and so you can't cheat, which is good because you want everything to be square. But then it means, okay, my wheels are somewhere not quite lined up, so I have to fiddle with this again a couple times until I can get the wheels in place. And finally, after I get everything back in the right place, then I can go ahead and squeeze it together. But as you can see, it's not always a real quick job to do quartering. In fact, it would have been a lot easier if I had no wheels on at all. And maybe I should have done that, but I try not to pull wheels unless I absolutely have to, just because it wears out the ends of the axles and the insides of the wheels each time you pull them off. So anyhow, this is just me struggling, but eventually we get there. Now it's smart to use a vise or a clamp, I should say, to do these squaring, but I chose to cheat a little bit. Instead of going out to the workshop, I just went ahead and used the little C-clamp that I had. And then after I checked the wheels, they were a little bit wobbly, so I went ahead and used the C-clamp again just to get them a bit more square. After running the motor for a little bit, I found that the armature was getting really hot. So even though it checked out spec-wise, it had purple windings and was suspect. And so I swapped that out with another armature that I had, and that seemed to get the motor to run a lot smoother and more cool. So here you see me using a flat surface to try and straighten out the side gear on this Hudson. It's not uncommon to have some issues, and in addition to a little bit of bending, there were also some rivets that were really loose, and that can happen just through years of wear. And so I'm just trying to tighten some of those rivets up a little bit You want to have things be pretty loose on side gear because you don't want it to bind, but if it's too loose and sloppy, then you run the risk of binding and stuff's, going out of alignment and colliding with other side gear, and that's, too far the other direction. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a ditch on either side of that road. So just me doing what you've seen done lots of times here with reassembling a Hudson. And if you're wanting to see this kind of thing done in slow motion, I encourage you to go to my playlists and check out repairs on 322s or Hudsons, because there are a bunch of them. But just again, going through the steps, putting everything back together. And once everything is back together, I'll check by manually spinning the armature to see if there's any binding of the wheels or the side gear. And that's a good practice. You want to do that and make sure that you don't have any collisions. And it looks like I've got the primary side rod backwards. That little nub should be in front of the main middle drive wheel. Oh well. I guess that'll go into history. See if I put this one. Yeah, I put this one on backwards too. I guess it doesn't ultimately matter. That little bulge on the main drive rod is supposed to represent a flexible joint, because in real life your drive wheels on a steam engine were actually sprung, and so you had to have flexibility in the side rods. It couldn't be just one piece of metal like you do on a toy like we have here, because if they were one piece of metal and the wheels needed to modulate or undulate a little bit, then you'd quickly have bent side gear. So anyhow, that's the reason for that little bump, and it is technically supposed to be in front of the main link there in the middle drive wheel. But just don't tell anyone. That'll be our secret.